Okay, perfect. So, again, thank you, Josh, for the invitation. I'm really excited to be here. Blazor is one thing that I'm really passionate about, and I hopefully by the end of the meeting, you guys understand why, and you guys feel as passionate as I am about Blazor. I truly believe that if you are a .NET developer, you should know about Blazor, and then you can decide if you will use it or not. But I guarantee you will do it. So again, my name is Jose Javier Colombier. I'm a DevExpress MVP and a Microsoft MVP, and I have been developing Windows application for almost 10 years. And why I'm telling you guys that? Because by no means I consider myself a web developer. My whole background has been WinForms, WPF. I have done a lot of Xamarin and certified there. I have done a lot of mobile applications. And even if I have done some ASP.NET Web Form and MVC, I have never considered myself a web developer. We have other people on my team that are web developers, and it has never been my cup of tea. But until Blazor has come to change that, and hopefully I will transmit that to you. So let's talk about the agenda that we're going to talk today in the presentation. We're going to talk about what is Blazor, is JavaScript dead, another Silverlight. These are common questions that everybody asks when we are introducing Blazor. I'm going to give you a complete overview, and I'm going to try to be gentle, but you shouldn't not be scared about starting a project with Blazor thinking that it's going to happen the same as Silverlight, and we're going to get to why. We're going to talk about the different hosting model of Blazor, Blazor Server versus Blazor WebAssembly. We're going to talk about performance. We're going to talk about reusable components and JavaScript interop. We're going to talk about the future of Blazor, and these points I'm really excited about. There is a lot of promise, a lot of functionality, a lot of great things that are going to happen with Blazor in the future. So hopefully I transmit you that. Okay, and at the end I will leave you with some links, resources about joining the community. I think that I strongly believe that you cannot be successful without the community, without this support system that is the .NET ecosystem, and there is no better moment to be a .NET developer than now. So what is Blazor? Before we answer this question, I think that the most important part is answering how is the web developing ecosystem right now in this day. So pretty much you have a server. It could be a data center, it could be a server in your house, it could be a Raspberry Pi. It doesn't matter. You need to have a hardware that is going to run some code, and that code can be Java, can be Node, can be Go, can be PHP, can be .NET. It doesn't matter. But then you have to code all the interactions in the client side in your browser. And for that, there are frameworks like Angular, React, Vue.js, and even if you use some type of transpiler like TypeScript, you always have that JavaScript runtime that is taking care of everything. So if you think about this for a second, it's a little frustrating because it has always been a disconnection between the server side and the client side. So if you're a .NET developer, for you to be considered like a complete full stack, you need to know JavaScript, you need to know Angular, React, Vue, something that runs on the browser. But in that regard, it comes WebAssembly. So WebAssembly, for those ones who don't know, is an intermediate language. It's a binary format, a binary code that the browser can understand. So if you see here, this is the binary representation of a WASM format. And the great thing about this is that you can take any language. It's not only C#, even if I'm really passionate about C#. It could be Python, it could be Java, it could be Ruby, it could be anything, and you can compile it to this medium language that any modern browser can understand. Chrome, Safari, Mozilla, Edge, all of those, and even the mobile version of all those browsers can understand that language because it's a web standard, and they can actually render what you're trying to achieve. So Blazor is the answer to all of that. Blazor comes with compiling your code to that middle language, to that binary format, so the browser can understand. So what is Blazor? So Blazor is a single-place framework for building interactive UI with C#. So when we say that, people say, hey, why do I need to learn a new framework? Every time that I need to learn a new framework, there is this overwhelming feeling, there is a learning curve that I have to learn something that is going to be a black box, that there is input and output. But the truth is that if you are a .NET developer, if you are a .NET chap, Blazor will come really handy because you will be able to use the .NET ecosystem. You will be able to use all those libraries that you are used to, the link, the reading a file system, it will be the same. You will be able to reuse the logic that you have on the server on the front end on the browser. So the performance is almost native because again, you are compiling to that binary code that the browser is understanding. You will have the tooling that you are used to. Personally, I have done projects in PHP and C++, and I always feel that I'm missing that Visual Studio tooling, that Visual Studio feeling that I know from scratch. And not only that, if you are not a Visual Studio fan because you think that maybe it's a monolithic app, it's still 32-bit, you have VS Code that runs on Mac, it runs on Windows, it runs on Linux, so you can develop it in any computer, in any platform that you want. You have access to all the NuGets, all the DLLs, everything that you are used to right away. So again, doing in HTTP client, it will be the same even if you're doing in the browser, if you're doing in WinForms, if you're doing in Xamarin. And for those people that are a little worried about the security part of running C# code in the browser, I want to say that it is still in the same sandbox that JavaScript, the same security concerns that JavaScript has, C# will have it, Blazor will have it. And if you have used ASP.NET Web Form and MVC, you will love Blazor. Blazor becomes kind of like the modern approach of building web application because it's web form without all those postback, callbacks. And if you see the picture here on the right, you have the DOM as the lower layer, and then the WebAssembly series on top of that just translated that so the .NET runtime can run the Blazor code. Okay, so is JavaScript dead? A lot of people think like, how I'm gonna not do JavaScript if I'm programming in the browser. First thing is like JavaScript is this type of language that you love or hate. There is no way in between. People, I know that it's not a strong type, I know that, but people get really upset, especially .NET developers, because they don't want to use JavaScript at all. They say no JavaScript, but the truth is JavaScript is a language that has been for years and for years. There are a lot of libraries that are really stable, that it has been proved for with millions of concurrent users. It has been so JavaScript is not going to die anytime soon. And actually, I recommend you, if your main stack is JavaScript, don't change. You should go there. That's a language that meets your need. Please don't change. But if you are a .NET developer, please consider Blazor, because Blazor will give you that tool to use the same logic in the browser and in the server. So definitely, in Blazor, one of the great things is that JavaScript interop is the first-class citizen. It allows you to really well get access to the JS runtime and use any type of collaboration with JavaScript. You don't need to know how the JavaScript is done. The only thing that I need to do is I have a black box. I need to pass this input. I need to get this output. And I can take all those libraries that has been with 10,000 unit tests that have been tested for so long and reuse it on my code. So, and let's get to this question, because this is really interesting. Another Silverlight. A lot of people that got his experiencing in Silverlight, they are a little disappointment because Microsoft at some point killed Silverlight. And the thing is, like, if you think back to a big amount of years back, the issue is that the way to develop rich interact web application was through Flash. But the thing about Flash is Flash has too many moving parts, a really big learning curve. There was a scripting language. There was I think that a movie part, a paint part, there was too many things that it was too cumbersome to develop anything. So the solution to that was Silverlight. Silverlight came like a hero, and it did C# on the browser, and it did SAML for you to do your UI, and it was great, but it has a really big problem, a security issue, that it was based on plugins. And at some point, Safari, Apple decided that they need to kill Flash, and that's when the Microsoft didn't have another choice to end the life of Silverlight. But why this is not going to happen with Blazor? Because WebAssembly has become the default web standard for the web, together with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So that means that every modern browser is running WebAssembly now, even the mobile part. There is no plugin at all. You are running natively in the browser. There is in Boxer in the same sandbox as JavaScript. So any same security concern that you can have with JavaScript is the same one that you will have with C#, no more, no less. So if I have to say something else, it just works. Blazor works out of the box, and it's a really nice implementation. I have to say, as of today, right now, there is only 243 days before Silverlight reached the end of support. So if you were a Silverlight developer and you have a lot of program done in Silverlight, you need to migrate it. And there are a few solutions out there. There is OpenSilver that they have some type of converter or some type of binding that takes your code from Silverlight and move it to WebAssembly, but it's still not complete because it cannot foresee all the libraries and everything. Or you need to rewrite it by scratch. But let's talk about the two hosting model of Blazor. And please, if there is any questions, don't hesitate to interrupt me, and I will be more than happy to answer those. But let's talk about Blazor Server versus Blazor WebAssembly. We have two hosting models. So in Blazor WebAssembly, everything is running in the browser. So it's downloading all your DLLs, all your assets, CSS, everything is running in the browser. And in Blazor Server, there is a signal connection between the server and the browser. So everything is running on the server, but really efficiency is only sending updates back to the browser. It's only sending the HTML that is needed for the application. And we'll see which application makes more sense in which hosting model. So, for example, WebAssembly. WebAssembly runs directly in the client. So that means that all the processing is not going to your server. You don't have to pay for that processing. You don't have to pay for that memory. Everything is running natively in the computer of the user that is taking your application. So the bad thing about that, and again, is because it downloads everything from the browser. It's going to download the HTML, the CSS, JavaScript, all the .NET DLLs and the .NET runtime. Because one of the brilliant things that Microsoft did, it was like they took the .NET runtime and they compiled it to WebAssembly. So your application is not actually compiling your DLLs to WebAssembly. It's compiled to intermediate language, and the .NET runtime is taking care of interpreting that code and rendering it correctly. There is no server needed. You can have a WebAssembly application that is just running in the computer of the user, and I think that Josh was actually referring to that. You can have an Azure Web Static storage and have your WebAssembly app running there. You don't need nothing else, just storage. So then everything gets downloaded to your client and you can run it. Now, let's talk about the pros and cons of Blazor WebAssembly. And sometimes it's depending on the use. So sometimes these pros and cons are two ways. So for example, runs on the client. This will be a pro and a con. It runs on the client, so you don't need that memory on the server. You don't need that processing on the server. But let's say that you have a really big machine learning processing, some type of image recognition processing. In that case, maybe the user computer, the user hardware doesn't have the capability to run that really big processing, so it won't be able to do it. But for everything else, let's say that you have a game or something, definitely WebAssembly is a great choice. The performance, again, is almost native because it's reading that intermediate code that is WebAssembly to render on the server. There is offline support because everything is running on the browser, so you don't need a server, you don't need a connection to be able to run the application. No server needed as well, and all modern browsers supported. Safari, Opera, Firefox, Edge, but not all browsers run it. And again, if we're going to talk about the cons, it runs on the client. Exactly. It's a pro and a cons because sometimes you cannot achieve in the client when you want. It's limited by the browser capability. I think that Internet Explorer 9 or some of those old browsers, they won't be able to run WebAssembly. And in our case, we might probably say, hey, but who use that? There are like big bank institutions that they need to accommodate to every browser. Those ones won't be able to run WebAssembly, so WebAssembly won't be the choice there. So there is, of course, a bigger file download and loading time because the first time that your application is loading is bringing every DLL, is bringing every asset, every image, every CSS, every JavaScript to your log. But I have to say this, I think that there is a comparison between Blazor and Angular, and Blazor with just a file new project is like 2 megabytes and Angular is like 8 megabytes. So yeah, it's a bigger file download, but it's competitive what we have in the market right now. And of course, no secrets can be stored in the application because anyone can access your system is running on the client and they can decompile, decrypt, and see what's going on. And if you have, for example, a connection string to your database, they will be able to get that information. So that's not at all a good practice, a good example for that. And again, all browsers do not support WebAssembly. So let's talk about,
Jose, hi. We have a couple of questions in the chat. I don't know if you want to wait till the end or take those as we go.
Let's take it as they go, please.
Okay, great. So the first one was, can you do load balancing between servers? And I think they mean, from the Blazor front end, how you would set up load balancing.
You can definitely do it. You can definitely do it. And I have a couple of slides later on about performance and things like, definitely you can do load balancing. And again, there is and I will get to that, there is a reason that when you are doing this, when there is Blazor WebAssembly, everything is running in the client. So right there, exactly, there is no load balancing. But when you're doing Blazor server, you definitely need to do, when the application gets bigger and bigger and you have a lot of concurrent users, you do need to do some load balancing. And the great thing about Blazor is that it has this Azure SignalR service that takes care of all that stickiness, all of those scalability issues, and a lot of other things. And I will show some metrics about using, for example, a server with 4 gigabyte or 14 gigabytes of RAM and something. I have the slides actually there, like how you can scale it really big with not too much hardware. Not only that, Blazor, you can run it on Linux, you can run it in IIS, so you have a lot of things there. If you're using IIS, you can do an IIS forest that you can distribute the load equally. So there are a lot of things there, and I will expand a little bit more when we get there. Is there another one?
The only other one was, I think you've already answered. That was a great answer, by the way. But the only other one was about the runtime size, and I think they were talking specifically about the WebAssembly runtime that's being it's being sent to the client. But you said about 2 megs. Is that right?
Yeah, and exactly. But that's again, I'm talking about a file new project application. So there is nothing else. If you have a really big application with a lot of libraries, a lot of DLLs and so on, your application will grow in size a bit. But if you're just talking about the .NET runtime, that's really small and it's really efficient. And I will show you there the mechanisms that they do to send data back, and that in my opinion is genius. So definitely. And again, if I don't answer your question completely, come back to me. I will keep doing the slides, but please come back to me and I will expand on that.
Okay, thanks, Jose. I think that's all the questions we got for now, but if another one comes up, I'll wait till a good stopping point, maybe between slides, to ask you.
Yeah, please, let me know. Those interactions I really like. Again, I don't want this to be a monologue, just me talking. If you have questions, please stop me. I'm more than happy to answer those.
Great, thank you.
Let's talk about Blazor server. Blazor server, we have to think that the Blazor application are nothing else than a regular ASP.NET Core application. So it will contain the .NET Core runtime, and the communication with the UI will happen using SignalR. That's the Blazor server part. So if you think about this, it's pretty much events going to the server and UI updates sent back to the browser. So let me just give a quick rundown for people that doesn't know what SignalR is. SignalR is an application framework for bilateral communication. So you can have a one-to-one, one-to-many communication, and the client can subscribe to that SignalR. SignalR, what we'll do is we'll notify every client every time that there is a new update, a new event. So it's really efficient, and it does it through WebSocket. It's in Blazor specifically. It has a lot of other protocols that it can use, but in Blazor specifically, it's going through WebSocket. So it has like a copy of your DOM in memory, and when you do some type of change, it compares a copy of the DOM with the new change and only send that difference. So it's that efficient that the payload is so minimal that, okay, let's see it in action. If you see here, we have a Blazor application with a label and a counter. Every time that they click the button, the counter increments, but that so exciting label, it changes to ball. If you check the inspect and you see what is going back and forward, the only thing that is changing in the whole page is that a pink part that is saying font weight, a style font weight ball, nothing else. I don't know if you guys have seen the web fonts, but in web fonts, when you do those type of postback, callbacks, the whole page becomes pink. It's like updating the whole big section. Right here, it's really efficient. It's only showing just the little part that you modify, nothing else. Blazor is taking that difference on the DOM and just sending what it changed, nothing else. So let's see a little bit more. If you see the message that is going back and forward to WebSockets, of course, this message is nothing like a readable thing for the human eye. This is just a binary format for the browser to understand. But we can get some information from there. If you see here, we can see that it's sending the style font weight ball. But just that. And the size of the binary message with that font weight ball is 229 bytes. I don't know, but I think that that's really small and that's really efficient. I have to say kudos to Microsoft for that really nice implementation. Okay, let's talk about the pros and cons of Blazor server. As always, first pros, and that will be a con as well, is run on the server. So yeah, definitely it runs on the server, so you have the .NET a lot faster. You don't have to download anything to the browser. Everything is stay in the server. No WebAssembly neither. So if you're running a old browser from Internet Explorer 9 or something, you are a big bank, a big institution that you need to support all the browsers. You don't need to have WebAssembly. And you have the full .NET framework at your disposal. So in your server, you can have everything you need. And because your server is only controlled by you, you can have connection straight to the database, you can keep secrets, you can do anything that you cannot do in WebAssembly, because no one can access your server as they can do in the WebAssembly part. In the WebAssembly part, people can go and take your DLL and decompile it. Right here, everything in your site. So in some point, it takes away the need for a middle tier, a web API, a REST service that is actually handling that part. But again, a cons that is also pro, it needs a server. So when you are deploying this to your user, you are handling the server, you are hosting the server, and every time that a new user connect, that means that more memory is allocated for the user, more processing time is allocated to the user. So it depends on your application, is what you're going to choose, Blazor WebAssembly or Blazor server. Of course, there is no offline support because you need that SignalR connection back and forward all the time. And if you actually take one of the Blazor server application and you open the network tab on the DevTools, you see that down then there is just 1 byte, 2 bytes that have been sent just to keep that SignalR connection open. Of course, there is bigger latency, but that WebAssembly, because again, have to go to a server, come back and be doing those differentiation. But we have a lot of Blazor server apps already in production, and it's not slow by any means. Maybe if you have, again, some type of machine learning or some type of image processing or some big game, you will see that big difference. But Blazor server is fast. If you have done, again, web forms or something like that, and you use Blazor, you will see a huge improvement in speed. So let's put just a few examples of when to use Blazor server or Blazor WebAssembly. So for performance, something like game, some type of processing that it needs to happen. I have seen like AutoCAD, I think that they're doing in Blazor WebAssembly. That's a great example for Blazor Assembly because everything is running in the client. If you need offline support, if you are like going through a place that you know that you're not going to have internet connection, Blazor WebAssembly makes sense. If the server is not running in .NET, maybe the server is PHP, maybe the server is Java. Of course, WebAssembly can connect through APIs to web service to that one, so that's a great choice. But if you need server resources, if you need to have the full .NET framework, if you have to save you don't want a middle tier, you want to change connection and string secrets, or there is a big machine learning that you know that maybe the user doesn't have the resources, that's a great use for Blazor server as well as ERP. ERP is a very great use for Blazor server. If you need to support all browser versions, let's say that you need to support Internet 9, Blazor server is a way to go because WebAssembly is not supported by this browser. But this is the interesting part. If you need to do interactive web apps, what will you use? So in this case, the answer is both. You can use Blazor server and Blazor WebAssembly. Both give you really good tooling for the interactive web app. And now that we are here in this part, I would like to show something real quick. Let me open it here. If you see in the picture on the side, we're talking about Try.net, and we have it here. Try.net is a really nice application that is running WebAssembly, and that means that you will be able to put your code. So let's say that you're trying to say, I'm going to sort a list, I'm going to do something, but I don't want to open a whole Visual Studio, a whole thing just to see what happens. So you can pretty much take Try.net that Microsoft provides and just put your C# code and run it. And you will see the answer there. And you say, okay, this is the way that I have to do it on my program. And if we go to the inspect command, and we go to consoles, if we go to network, and let's refresh, you will see here all the DLLs that is downloaded. So that's when we're talking about WebAssembly. Everything is downloading to the browser, so they can actually use all those DLLs the same way that you call an HTTP client, the same way that you sort a list, the same way that you all the DLLs that we are used to, like as a .NET developer, we will have it here at our disposal. So,
Jose, there was one question that popped up in the chat, and I think this was a good place to stop to ask it.
Sure.
And that is about those assemblies that come down into the client, whether or not they're signed in any way, or there's any type of security around those to make sure that the client's getting the version of the DLL that you expected them to.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, there is always going to be that security concern. But yeah, definitely, there is a signing mechanism that they have. Right now, they are still working on get that one better. And with .NET 6, that's one of my last slides. There are a lot of things that are coming there. But definitely, there is going to be that type of prevention of a hacker just modifying your DLL and trying to pass that as yours. So for now, I will say they have a limited support right now. It's not 100% there, but I don't think that there is no issue right now because it's still in the same sandbox. Right now, if you're running WebAssembly, you are still constrained for the same sandbox that JavaScript have. You cannot go and read the file system. You cannot go and do those operations that are not allowed because you are in that browser domain.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so for performance, let's get to that part. This is a performance test that Microsoft did. So they are testing for less than 200 milliseconds on their load that they have 5,000, if you see the picture, 5,000 concurrent active users with just one CPU and 3.5 gigabytes of RAM, and they are clicking every second. And the latency have to be less than 200 milliseconds, and there was no degradation. If they have a full CPU and 14 gigabytes with 20,000 users, giving click every 1 second, there is no performance degradation. So those are really great numbers to think about. And of course, this is a fine new product, nothing else. As soon as you start putting more functionality in your application, this will be degrading a little bit. But these are really great numbers. And what you have to think is like the memory is the primary bottleneck. But when you are seeing this number, like just 4 CPU, 4 gigabytes, when we do here some type of load testing, there is no limit in the amount of concurrent users that you can have. And I have to say, if you have 100,000 concurrent active users, that's a good problem to have. You can monetize that, you can do things around that. So Blazor is definitely give you really nice performance and escalation. And the only thing there that I will say is that there is some type of stickiness that is needed for that. So Azure Signal Service come with all those configuration in place for you. So when I will not recommend that for a Blazor server app just from scratch. But as your application grow and you have a lot of concurrent users, Azure Signal Service will give you an escalation tool that is as what you use in Azure, just a slide, just a really fast, more resources needed. And I have a lot of applications right now in Blazor running, and we have not had any issue whatsoever about performance on Blazor server, because a lot of people are kind of like hesitating, and they always want to, no, I want to do WebAssembly because WebAssembly is the one who's going to move everything to the client, and I will have to be worried about the performance because it's depending on the hardware of the client. I have to say, unless that is a enormous amount of users, Blazor server is really on production level, proved are ready for us. So now let's talk about the architecture of Blazor. So Blazor is based on components. So everything is on component on Blazor. Like we can say, like everything is an object in C#. So if you think about here, we have this Blazing Pizza sample application that is one of the workshops that Microsoft provides. If you see here, we can say that the navigation is a component. All these card views with the price is another component. The order, when you order, is another component. So if you think about this, all our application is component inside the component, and by side of components. So it's a really nice implementation that we can actually use it and ship it separately. So I can take this card view and put it in a NuGet package and reuse it in another application with new information. So it's a composition of components of parent and child where we are inserting one component inside another one. And actually, I think that is Michael Washington that they have a talk about dynamic templating in advanced templating in Blazor, that they're passing templating parameters to another component. So it's a little hard to visualize, but it's crazy because you can do a WordPress inside Blazor. You can do some type of CMS that you are actually passing a whole component to another component, and he can do something with it and display information based on the dynamic requirements of the user. So again, all of this, you can take it, put it in a Razor library, ship it, put it in a NuGet package, and someone you can reuse it in your other application. So it's so reusable that it blows my mind. So, and again, you can do templates as I already talked. So let's think about this for a second. If you see this is in Blazor WebAssembly, in Blazor WebAssembly, we have our main page is an index page. And if you see here in the page, there is a build the root component. Even the app, that is the bootstrap of your application, is a component, that is the app component. If we go to the Blazor server, in the body of our host page, we have the component type of app, that is again, the component that starts our application. So again, it's like the Inception movie, that you have a dream inside of a dream, that if you don't have that little toy that let you know, hey, I'm two-way deep, you are composing your application with reusable components. So it's a really really nice architecture, really reusable architecture that you can, let's say, okay, this is my sign-in page for every app that I have. From now on, this is going to be the one that I'm going to use for everything. So it's amazing in my opinion. So let's take a look quickly at the app Razor. This is the app that starts the application. So this app takes care of routing the application. And if you see, it goes to your assembly of your program and start looking for components. And if you find it, perfect. It's routed to that component that in this case is the main layout. But if it doesn't find it, it tells you to another component that is going to tell you, hey, there is nothing in this. So it's really, really, really nice. So the only difference that we have to say about WebAssembly versus service is the access and permission. That means that in a WebAssembly, I cannot call the database directly. I need to have a web service in the middle. So in Blazor server, I can call the file system. I can go and read something on the file on my server, but in Blazor WebAssembly, I cannot do that because I'm still in the sandbox of JavaScript. And now that we're talking about JavaScript, let's say a Blazor app, it has first-time citizen support for JavaScript interrupt. Blazor can invoke JavaScript function from .NET methods and can invoke .NET methods from JavaScript function. And I will give you a quick walkthrough. This is how simple it is to call a JavaScript function on Blazor. And if you have done web forms, you will know how cumbersome it is. Right here, pretty much, let's say that I had a file in my www root of all my assets that is going to call Blazor interrupt, that it will take my JavaScript file. This is my JavaScript file, and then I pretty much add the reference in my host page. That's the main page that I need to tell them where to look for my JavaScript interrupt file. Then I have a function in that Blazor interrupt JavaScript that it will be anything like show alert, just show me an alert. With that function inside my JavaScript interrupt, the only thing that I have to do in my component is inject the JS runtime and invoke it. That's it. That's how easy it is just to call a JavaScript interrupt. And if you think about this for a second, it's amazing because let's say that I have a Gantt chart, a data grid, a drag and drop library that I already implement all the JavaScript functionality. The only thing that I really need to know is input and output. What do I need to pass to this function? What do I need to get back? And I already interacting with JavaScript.
Jose, we had one more question in the chat, and it was about the components that you showed before, and whether or not they can be accessed dynamically via HTML. So the person said they were thinking about, like, you know, red-green updates or upgrades, like if you could do, I'm assuming that's feature flagging via HTML or something like that, where you could switch the components out, or would that be something you do in the code itself? Yeah, you can definitely. The great thing about Blazor is have this builder tree that is actually building your HTML on the fly.
so you can have all those advanced dynamic templating. And there is actually, I don't remember the name right now but there is actually this framework that is called Octane. Octane. I'm trying to think of the name of the author that did that framework. That is, if you check that, and it's open source, it has all those templating, all those advanced dynamic components that take as a parameter another HTML component, and they do a builder tree depending of the user interaction. So one thing that I will do after this talk, I will provide the link for the .NET Core talk that he did about dynamic templating on Blazor components in Octane, so you can share it with the rest of the user group. I think that they will really love that capability that Blazor provides. That is not a fixed component, it's always going to be like that. No, depending of the parameter that you pass. And not only that, you can have attribute splitting or cascading parameters that go all the way through 1, 2, 3, 4 parameters until you get to the point that they need to display the right information. So it's a really nice implementation. I don't remember the name of the guy right now. It's killing me, but I will show it. I will send you the link later on.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So let's talk about the future of Blazor, because this is really exciting for me. Future of Blazor is what really makes me excited about this. Okay, we talk about Blazor server. Like, again, the code is running on the server. We talk about Blazor WebAssembly. The code is running on the client. And there is more thing about that. We have Blazor PWA, that if you actually do file new WebAssembly, I already have that checkbox that you want to say, I want to do this, my application, a PWA app. And what does it mean to have a progressive web app? That means that you can have offline support, that your application, it will show in the home screen and the taskbar, like it will simulate some type of desktop application. You can have push notifications, but I have to say that it's still somehow restricted to the sandbox that JavaScript has. So let's say that the next part, the Blazor hybrid, is .NET rendering to an Electron on WebView. That means that it will render as a desktop app as well as the PWA, but it has some other APIs like accessing a file system, accessing things like the PWA doesn't offer you because it's still in that sandbox. Right here, you can access whatever you want. So it's like having a desktop application. And if you think about this, one of the example of this is Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is based on Electron. Slack is based on Electron. So those are really applications that millions of people use, and it's based on that technology. So imagine you having your Blazor that does your web app, you have it on the client, and you also have a desktop application on that. And by to finish the future of Blazor, there is the mobile part. There is a project right now that is called Experimental Mobile Blazor Binding that allows you to take that Blazor syntax and shoot it in a mobile application. So let's talk really brief about PWA. PWA, again, this is the template when you're creating a new application. You can say, I want to have a progressive web app, and the template will generate the manager for you. It will generate everything you need to have that offline capability, that home screen, that taskbar, that push notification. And if you see, you have the application here, you click on the button and you install it. So Electron, you will have a native application that it will be able to access those native API, and it's pretty much adding a new packet, selecting this is going to be my Electron Windows Manager, and then in your host builder, you say, okay, I'm going to use Electron now. And after that, pretty much you install the global tool Electron CLI in it and build target. And if you see here, build target, that target could be Win, could be Mac, could be Linux. So you can have the same application, exactly looking the same, exactly behaving the same on all three platforms. So let me stop the slide for a second and show a little bit of code. So we have this code application, Blazor application, and pretty much, again, if you see here, I already set it up as a PWA. So we have a service worker or manifest, but pretty much what I want to show is like, again, there is the index page, and these are all simple layouts, nothing else. So if we run this application, now let's do it for a second. It's nothing crazy. It's just a simple file new with just hello and a picture. So if you see, this is a website, right? Nothing more. but then we have this open link, and if we do that, this becomes kind of a desktop application, and this will have and I don't see it here now on my screen because the PowerPoint is in whole mode, but it will have an icon in the taskbar, it will have an icon in the desktop, and it will get notifications. So pretty much you are simulating right here a desktop application, And let's now move the project and select the Android part. And let's run it. So this same application, reusing that Blazor syntax, you will go and get it in the mobile part, and you will right away get your mobile application with Blazor in mobile. That pretty much is sitting on top of the Xamarin SDK, because Xamarin pretty much is translating the XAML in their case, when you are using Xamarin Phone, and in this case the Blazor, to the native controls. And if you see here, it's the same reusability that we're talking about. The only thing that I would like to show that I don't have right here is the Electron part. But in the Electron part, it works exactly the same. Pretty much you have, and let's go back, you have this target win that will go to Mac, it will go to Linux, it will go to Windows, and you will have that same application with menus. And I think that I can show something quickly actually. Let me open this one, put it here, and you will have this application that is, let's wait for a second. If the demo goes, like they say that demo goes help me, there is not going to fail. Pretty much is showing that application as a desktop application. So let's pretty much open here. And if I open here, because after it compiles, it will show it. It will right away give you that look and feel as if you are in a desktop part. Let's wait for a second. So as you see, this is the same Blazor app with menus. It's completely a desktop application. So again, just with these few paths, Nugget package, use Electron, install the global tool for Electron, initialize, build target win, and this target could be Mac, could be Linux, could be anything. So why I personally have been waiting for Blazor, me that I'm not a web developer, because I can use my C# knowledge, everything that I have known for so many years in Windows. I can have this big productivity that new developers get in my company, and they get up to speed and they can do production code right away in the first week because they already have that C# knowledge. We have been able to, with that reusability from client and server, to reduce costs and maximize reach. And the reach and meaning Windows, Mac, Linux, mobile, iOS, Android, and web. There is a brilliant feature on everything that is coming, and I will show you in the next slide. So I already showed this experimental mobile Blazor when we have iOS, Android, and so on. But let's see what is coming from Blazor in Net 6. Hot reload for Blazor, so you will be able to change your HTML, your code, and CS right away on the browser. There is AOT compilation, so right now you are interpreting that the .NET runtime is taking your DLLs and interpreting that and showing that result, but it will be compiled before that. That will improve performance a lot. You will be able, and this is going to be, right now it's just us doing that, but it will be supported by Microsoft officially, so they will be supporting to that desktop platform of iOS, Mac, Linux, Windows. It will have support for custom events in Blazor. It will allow you to select required parameters. it will expose location in the navigation manager, so you can also do things like GPS more accurate. It will be able to dynamically render components as we were talking before. So depending of a user input, the component will change. And it will be able to update Blazor head components. And this is really important, especially for CEO. So you can have your metadata, your tiles, your head component. And it will improve SVG and drag and drop. So Blazor is the future. I definitely believe, at least for .NET developers, if you want to have a just one stack that is completely cross-platform, you will love Blazor. And before we finish the talk, I will wanna definitely encourage you to go and check us on Blazor. That's a really nice repo that has a lot of contributions, a lot of collection of really nice articles, videos, and components and things that you can reuse in your day-to-day Blazor development. And of course, I will like to leave you with some vendor components that have really nice components, a lot of free, some one paid, but that they really speed up your development so you don't have to do a lot of things from scratch. You shouldn't have to build a new data grid from scratch. That's a really comprehensive control, and they provide it right on the box. So with that in mind, what can we not do with Blazor? We can do desktop, we can do mobile, we can do web. Blazor, if that's your flavor of development, if you are a web developer, this is the time to take care of Blazor. This is the time to become not a back end, not a front end, but a full stack developer in .NET. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Wow. Good stuff.
Yeah. So any questions, please? I'm more than happy to keep talking about this. I'm really excited, and I think that the possibilities are huge. I think that, again, I understand some people that HTML, CSS is not their cup of tea, but there is so many templates, so many things out there, so many great things that if right now we don't have to use JavaScript and we can use what we know, C#, link expression, we can use all the nuggets, everything that we have built for so long. The limit is what you put on it.